So I'm going to read our fun script. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GL 30A, Section 18, with the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Medfield Warrant Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access these proceedings as provided for in the order. As a reminder, persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so following the instructions on the agenda and meeting notice. And then I believe that Christine would like us to continue our new trend of doing a roll call by name as to who is our fun attendees during our recorded evening. So I am Sharon Tatro, and Bob.
I am Bob Swiney.
Ed.
I'm Ed Bozella.
Christine.
I am Christine Barton.
Newton Thompson.
I am Newton Thompson.
Amanda.
I am Amanda Hall.
And Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy Marset.
All righty. And we are recorded for everyone's future viewing pleasure. We don't have any guests officially this evening. So I thought that, if you clicked in 2 minutes late, you may have heard me complaining about the fact that I didn't really want to make this a long meeting. But what I thought we could do was maybe just run down the warrant articles to be able to decide if we could discuss anything at all tonight, or maybe just to decide when it is we think we could talk about it and if we need to have somebody come in. And then aside from that, Christine and Nick could give an update on the budget. Did people have a chance to watch the selectmen's meeting? Because if people did, we don't have to completely go through it as in depth, but if people didn't, we can do that.
I confess I haven't.
Okay. You're allowed to. You have little children that probably would not be amused by it.
True. Very true.
Yeah, but Amanda, the selectmen did assign 4 more things to you. So
I know,
Yeah.
but you know what the trend is?
in keeping with Sharon's established policy.
But I am going to say, as Sharon astutely pointed out, as they come onto my plate, they also drift off.
Yeah, she lost 2 in the revisions. So
Yeah.
she sent an email this weekend asking who she needed to talk to. And I go, well, nobody, it's gone.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So I don't know. Christine, what do you think? Do you want to try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and just go down the warrant and you can say your piece about them and then we can decide whether or not we can vote on it or if we need to have somebody come in? Do you want to just do that?
That's fine. And then I have just a shortened presentation to go through the budget in case there are any questions. In case anybody didn't watch the selectmen's meeting, we can just highlight some items on there.
Okay, that sounds good. And then at the end, we can maybe talk about schedules and stuff, because the
When you talk
part
about-
of, and we can talk about that too, but the bottom line is that the warrant hearing's not on the 23rd anymore. We're going to get at least another week, maybe 2 reprieve, so we can kind of figure out what we want to do. Plus, one of the Mondays coming up conflicts with the schedule, and since a certain person here is the volunteer tabulator for the town, either someone else has to chair the meeting or we're not meeting that night. So we can go through that. So do you want to just do the warrant first, Christine? Whatever. Yeah.
Why don't you
Okay.
just go through the articles, and then if anybody has any questions or needs additional information, we can get that to you.
Okay. All right. So all right. So number 1 is to accept the reports, which I don't think we can do yet. Right? I mean, do we ever vote on one?
I don't know whether or not you vote. This is a consent calendar. I've received all of the reports except for a couple of departments. This is more traditional that you are accepting everyone's reports. You're not necessarily accepting the town report, which then gets put together, but you are accepting the reports that everybody has turned in.
So do we have to vote on that? Or do we vote on that? Yes?
It's up-
No.
It's up to you. I mean, I'm asking that it be included in the consent calendar, so
Okay.
it's up to
But-
you. Well,
Anybody have a strong opinion? I really don't care. Like, is it something we can, because if we have to vote on it and it's not that big of a deal and everybody's
you have
okay
to
with
vote
just
on
voting
it.
on it, let's just knock that puppy off.
All right, vote on it. Hold on. I think you need to vote on it.
Does anybody
Yeah.
have an issue with,
You typically always vote whether or not you accept the reports.
okay, does anybody have any issues accepting reports or do I have a motion?
So move. I'll move that we accept the reports.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
All right, so Bob,
yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes,
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
and me. Yes. So, okay, one down. I don't know how many to go. Okay. All right. Perpetual care. It looks like we have a table that is filled in here. Do we think these are final numbers?
Their final numbers, I have a couple of spelling errors on people's names that we are correcting, but everything else, the money part of that is correct. It's just spelling on people's last names. Ed Vizella
Gotcha.
being one of them.
That is not good.
No.
All right. So does anyone have any questions about the perpetual care trust for Vine Lake, or do we have a motion?
Is this too part of the consent calendar?
Yes,
Okay, but we would still vote.
you would still vote.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to vote.
All right.
Motion to approve the
You
perpetual
could just say
care
Article 2. Yeah.
as presented.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
All right. Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Christine,
yes,
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Moving on.
Fucking them off.
All right. Okay. Article 3. We had talked about the fact that we needed numbers for these revolving funds, which look like they have been populated. Do we think that these are going to change, or do we think that these revolving transfers are accurate?
I think right now they are accurate. Yes. No,
Yes.
they are final numbers. Yes. They're final numbers. I'm working on like
I feel like we're playing
different
Jeopardy.
versions. I'm confident I feel good about these numbers.
You feel good about these
feel
numbers. Okay. So
They
do
might
we
be a cut
have,
and paste from the last 2 years, so I feel really, really good about them.
okay.
These are the same numbers as last year?
Correct.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Does anybody have any questions, or do we have a motion?
When you say they're the same numbers as last year, because these are the limitations on which can be spent from there, right?
Correct.
So
It's the maximum. Yeah.
that's why they don't change. Okay. Yeah. Motion to approve.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Oh, lots of seconds. Okay. Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Christine,
yes,
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
and Sharon. I'm a yes. Okay. 3 down. Okay. We already voted on the PEG funds on the 22nd. Okay. 5 is the elected officials compensation. Is there anything controversial about the elected officials compensation?
No change.
No change. So do
The
we have
warrant, the warrant committee chairperson still gets nothing.
I still get nothing.
You're
Raise the
not
share.
even listed.
I know. It's really kind of like a bad deal. I know.
It's
Park and
probably
Rec commissioners don't get anything either.
Well, it's
Is
obnoxious
it
to
worse
list-
not to be listed, or is it worse to be listed with a zero?
I think it's worse to be listed. I think there's like a little bit more
Yeah,
liability in your life if you're
You're
listed.
right, Jeremy. It could be like a value statement, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Too funny. All right. So does anybody have any questions, or do we have a motion on number 5?
Motion to approve Article 5.
There a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Christine,
yes,
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
All righty. Okay. Personal administration plan. Is that something we can do tonight?
Nope.
Okay. Do we need to schedule somebody to come in at some point, or are we just going to talk about this later?
I think we'll talk about it. I'll touch base with Jeremy, but I think we'll talk about it later. The personnel board should be meeting before the end of this week. And I need the Personnel Board to vote their final recommendation on the cost of living as well as the Board of Selectmen. So I'm hoping to have that happen within the next 10 days.
Okay. I'm writing that down.
Hold me to
Newton,
it.
she said 10 days.
I said 10 days. I'm on it.
Okay. All right. Okay, we obviously can't do number 7 because that's the school COVID. I'll just take the opportunity to say that I have asked the school if they could start to give us updates on that. We do not have an update on it tonight unless they gave it directly to Christine or Nick, because I didn't get it.
I do not have that.
And Ed, did you get it?
No, I can
Okay.
call Mike tomorrow, follow up.
Yeah, see if we can get it for next week, maybe.
Yeah,
Not that we'll have the number. I already communicated to them to not be upset if Article 7 is to be heard at the warrant hearing, because I don't think we're gonna be able to vote on this until the 11th hour. Because I assume the number is fluid.
I would agree.
Okay.
Especially given that we're not sure where the federal stimulus money that's coming in is at this point. So
So this may potentially be one of those votes like 10 minutes before the meeting starts.
yes. And I am going to update this that the article is sponsored by the Warrant Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the School Committee. Since all three met in the fall, I want to make sure all three of us are sponsors of the article.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so 8 is the operating budget, which we're going to talk about later, but we clearly can't vote on yet. So we'll skip that one. 9, the Municipal Stabilization Fund. Amy gave her presentation last week. I suppose we probably could vote on this one. Or do you want to just wait and do it next week when we do capital and everything, Christine?
It's up to you. I think either way, if people are looking for more information, we can wait until capital, but I don't think it's going to change based on that presentation.
Yeah, does anybody have questions? I know that we kind of, Amy presented and then we just kind of moved right on. Does anybody have any questions about the Municipal Stabilization Fund that Amy talked about last week?
Can you refresh refresh us with regard to the amounts that we're talking about here? Was this 175,000 or was it the
No,
large
this was
amount
the
of
one that's
990?
just under $1 million. Nick, do you have the number there?
It's
Uh,
990,500,
500, right.
which does not include the final number for the emergency fund that will be set aside under the control of the Board of Selectmen.
Right. Because basically what happened, Amy and Mike LaFrancesca kind of work together and they come up with the priority list. And then there were 2 numbers on their list that they weren't positive had exact numbers for, that both had to do with, I think were they both public safety building numbers? Yeah. And so the idea was that the amounts for those would go into an emergency fund idea of about $150,000. And then the rest of the amounts would get approved through the Municipal Stabilization Fund that has its own pot of money outside of the operating budget. And that's why what is this, the 3rd year of it?
But those were the 2 those are the 2 invoices that were approved, or expenditures to approved by the selectmen, right?
They would have to be approved by the selectmen. So
Well,
those
didn't
2,
they do it last week? That was
that was for this year. Well, but I think it was potentially right because that had to do with like the duct work. You really
Right.
did listen.
where
Bob
where
gets a
does the
gold star for listening.
where does the 150,000 come from?
It comes from the Municipal Stabilization Fund pot. So basically, when this initially passed, it passed with initial funding of $1 million. The selectmen have the ability to add to it by the 2.5% every year. So as
Right,
long as they
right.
choose to let it grow, which to this date, they have chosen to do that each year.
Right.
So we then spend it, plus there's a balance that kind of like keeps rolling forward. So if we don't spend the whole $1 million, or what's the number this year, like $1
So
million?
this is unspent funds from prior years.
Well, every year we get a new $1 million plus 2.5%.
Right, plus 2.5%, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
So
So-
that
25.
sorry, yeah, go ahead. No, but that's my question is that when we're looking for ultimately, could we have that for the money that we're still in a deficit position? Might this be a place where, no?
No, it's totally ring fenced in a legal way that it can only be used for repairs to buildings.
No, but I mean,
There.
do we, in terms of replenishing it or no? So like, for
replenishing
example,
this.
like they went in this one and they took $25,000 out for the two items that were presented last week.
That was an
You re-
emergency fund. We don't
Right.
have to replenish that.
All right, different thing. All right, okay.
Yeah.
I listen, but I don't understand, so that's.
Yeah.
what we do.
Basically, like there's a list of
Bob.
very specific things that she has to spend it on. So last year there was a list of very specific things, just like there is this year. Last year, one of the things that was added was this emergency fund, which basically siphons off a little tiny piece of this that allows her, if there's an emergency, to go to the selectmen and ask if she can use a piece of it up to that limit of the emergency fund.
Right.
So that's what she did last week.
Right, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so this year it will have the very specific list plus an emergency fund, just like it did this year.
So Sharon, does that emergency fund get replenished every year? So if it's
No,
at like,
it disappears at the end of the year.
Okay.
And so that way you would have to do a new one.
okay,
So maybe back to my original question, and maybe this is directed at Nick. Is it 990,500 plus the emergency fund?
I
So,
think it's minus
yeah,
that.
so it'll be, so that is a good point. So the couple of things. So there's 50,000 included in the 990,500 that will come out and be transferred over to the emergency reserve fund. And in addition to that, whatever's left in the fund this year, the article will include rolling that over into fiscal 22. So right now there'd be about 100 left in addition to the new 50,000 going into it. So it'd be a total appropriation of like 1,050,000 once, if that is where the existing reserve fund ends up.
Okay.
So I think that what we would be motioning would be the specific list plus the 50 plus the remaining balance of the emergency fund. That's what the number adds up to.
Which is to be determined, right?
Well, yeah, because right, exactly. That's why we're just saying remaining balance of the emergency fund.
All right, thank you.
No more, no less, whatever the remaining balance was.
Good to go.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or we don't want to go ahead and motion this one? Anyone? Anyone? I know it's mine. Should I just motion it?
Motion to approve. Motion to approve article, what is the number?
9. We're on Article 9.
9 as drafted.
Okay. And is there a
Second.
second? Okay.
Second.
Bob,
Yes,
Ed,
Yes,
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy, Amanda,
Yes.
and Christine.
yes,
Okay.
And you?
Oh yeah, and me. Yes. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm watching.
Article 10, it looks like it has a number in it. Is that something we can talk about, or do we need to
Nope, you can talk about that.
hunt it? Okay, what is it?
So this is the money, sorry. This is the money we've received back from MSBA for our reimbursement for the elementary school feasibility project. And the plan was when this Building Capital Stabilization Fund was first created, any reimbursements back from that initial $1 million that we did with the feasibility study in the first year, any reimbursement would go back into the Municipal Building Capital Stabilization Fund. So this is just transferring that money we've received from MSBA back into that account. Sorry, that was
Okay.
that was way too many words for what really is happening.
We're just moving money back where it belongs.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
Okay. Does anybody?
Christine,
go
the
ahead.
question I had, because Mike mentioned it, is it possible that we could get more reimbursed before the annual meeting?
I don't know. What I usually do in that case, if we think that's going to happen, is I will change the wording of this article to say a sum of money. And then what I will do is in the motion at town meeting, we will put in the full amount expected by
Of what
that.
it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably do that then, huh?
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
I'll change those, but I was trying to give you over the weekend, I was trying to take the numbers that Nick had prepared for me to try and give you an idea of where we were.
No, that's great.
Yeah, but we'll change any of those in case, like, especially with the PEG fund as well. That's another one we like to just hold because we sometimes get it in right before town meeting. And I hate to have them have us sit on it for almost a year before they can get it again.
Gotcha. Does anybody else have any other questions?
That was mine as well. Was there more to come?
Gotcha.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second,
All right. Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Newton,
yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes,
and Amanda.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to move off of my headset because I'm getting
You didn't vote?
Oh, sorry, me again. Yes, I'm voting for. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Still hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I
Yep.
know.
You're reduced.
Nope.
Can't hear you.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I don't think I can hear you. All right, somebody say something. Okay, now I can hear you. All right. I'm gonna have to be a little hokey here. Hold on. You hear me now? Okay, so for 11, we're gonna skip for now. And
I think
12,
11, yeah, I think 11, 12, and 13,
we have to skip all those, right?
and talk about those when capital comes in.
Okay, and 14, can we talk about 14? I don't think so, right?
No, I think you're gonna
We
hold
can't
it.
talk about 15 either.
Yeah,
Okay, how about, did we already do 16 for the Ubers? I feel like we might have done 16 for the Ubers.
Yeah, we approved 16 already.
We did, you were right. Now my numbers aren't matching. Okay, so 17. Oh, does economic vitality exist or not?
so it exists right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Board of Selectmen, but I am going to recommend that they reduce the amount of their request and or hold on it for this year. And that is because we received the $15,000 last year. And as you know, we bought some kick-ass blue picnic tables, right?
Right.
But
Bob loves them.
But I know Mike Pastore, big fan.
Yeah.
We have put those through CARES funding. So a lot of the items that we were utilizing the Economic Vitality Fund for, we have put through CARES. So we actually have a balance in that account currently. So I want to talk to the selectmen about reducing the amount of that request. So I would ask you to hold until I talk to them tomorrow night.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so we're going to be skipping that one. All
And
right.
just to warn them that Mike Pastore will stand on the floor and take the mic if they decide to go forward. Just a heads up. That might be a motivation for them to put it there. So I guess
It might be.
we
I
shouldn't
was
say.
gonna say, why don't we do it?
OMG. Okay. All right, this thing is off. All right. All right, so 9. So
18.
we're 18, the sewer stabilization fund transfer. Can we do that one or no?
So there was a note in Christine's email that it might be dropped.
Let's hold on that one for now, and we should have a
Okay.
better idea next Monday.
Okay.
Okie dokie. All right, so then 19 is lot 1. Can we do that one or no?
Yes.
We can?
So
Okay.
the selectmen, I think, have been kicking around the idea of selling some property over on Ice House Road, Lot 1 being one of them. Lot 1 is the Kingsbury Club. I looked at the lease that Nick gave me last year as we were preparing for a normal annual town meeting. I think it was last year, maybe a year before. When, and I didn't see anything in there about our having the ability to sell the land or the property, but maybe that doesn't need to be addressed in the lease. But be that as it may, it's leased to Kingsbury Club for 50 years. We're started 2007, it goes to 2057. This gives the right to the authorization of the Board of Selectmen to sell it. And the purpose of a land sale like this would be to obviously raise proceeds and replenish reserves. And in accordance with Section 5 of Financial Policies, proceeds of any sales of town land or other assets shall be deposited in a reserve, stabilization, trust, or other fund designated to fund the town's long-term liabilities or retired debt or otherwise reduce long-term non-recurring liabilities.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Gotcha.
That's not me.
No, it's me. I'm going to be switching to phone audio. So Christine, when you see a phone come in, let me in. You can keep going, Newton. Sorry.
No,
I'm going
that's
to
it.
mute myself while the,
So is the town selling it to the Kingsbury Club?
So what we do,
TBD.
we would put an RFP out to sell the property. And obviously we'd be looking for the highest bidder to purchase the property and take over the lease from us.
Christine, when I last spoke with, you and Nick very early on about this, I was also looking at Lot 3, and you directed me to a YouTube meeting of the Board of Selectmen back on October 1st, 2019, and they were talking about Lot 3. And does the Board of Selectmen have authority to sell that? Because they were talking in terms of, that was an article that year for disposition. I don't think it ever came up because of the abbreviated meeting last year, but they're talking in terms of potentially bundling 1 and 3 for sale.
That is correct. The Board of Selectmen already have authorization to sell Lot 3.
Okay. A lot going on at Ice House Road,
Yeah,
both sides of the street.
I know.
Okay. So
Newton, you mentioned
Is there a
that
lot 2 or is it just a lot 1 and 3? And are they budding?
2, I
Properties?
think, is
Two is
Council
Council
of
on Aging,
Aging.
Okay.
even though their address is 1 Ice House Road. So I'm
Right.
not selling the Council on Aging, I promise.
Right.
Newton, could you mention where the fund proceeds have to go? And 'cause I'm just curious if the warrant article should actually specify where the proceeds go.
Well, that's a good question. I was just quoting the financial policy that says proceeds of any sales of town land or other assets shall be deposited in a reserve or stabilization, et cetera, et cetera.
Is
So
that
your
the
point is, should it be called out?
Yeah, we can talk to the selectmen about specifically delineating where they would like it to go, but it's my understanding all 3 are in agreement. They would like it to go into stabilization.
And stabilization is just a generalized fund to stabilize the banks, the town's financial position,
Correct.
not specifically used for buildings or.
No, this would go just into the general fund stabilization, not specific purpose. Yeah.
All right. And I think
But
here,
I think the selectmen have also talked about whether or not some of the proceeds from the sale should be going to this new capital stabilization fund we have. So I think that's a conversation the 3 of them need to have if you'd like to see it delineated where exactly they're planning on putting it.
So I guess I'm still a little bit confused. If the Kingsbury Club is on Lot 1 right now,
by lease.
and they're by lease.
Mhm.
So an RFP went out for someone else who could may purchase it.
Sure.
If they purchase that land that the Kingsbury Club is on, what does the Kingsbury Club do?
They
It's
pay.
subject to a
lease
lease.
it from that owner?
They have to lease the same lease?
Same
Yeah.
lease. the honor-
The same lease, so that's it, okay, all right. All right. That needs to connect the dots.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's important to mention, as Jeremy and Newton suggest, that we do get a sense of where it is because of the importance of the financial position and how that's affected. So, I mean, it can be explained when it's presented at the town meeting, but
Mhm.
I think specifying it in the meeting would be good to have that meeting of the minds of the warrant and the selectmen.
I agree. And Christine, the RFP, or Nick, hasn't been drafted yet. It's pretty early. It would, until we get authorization to sell, you won't come forward with an RFP, correct?
No, and I think the selectmen also need to have an agreement if they're going to bundle that with lot 3 as well. So that's a conversation they need to have.
Right. And perhaps approach Kingsbury, as they said back in October 2019, notifying them of what's going on
Yes, Gus
and
has,
giving them the right of first refusal for both 1 and 2, 1 and 3.
Gus has offered to speak to them directly about our plans.
Okay. Outstanding. So do you, Christine or Nick, carry that request forward to the Board of Selectmen, or?
I will. I'll let them know that
Okay.
you'd like them to outline that.
That being the case, can we still vote on this?
I
No?
would think so. I'm sorry. That's,
I'm getting a,
Well, I
No.
was gonna say, if it affects your answer, then we can wait. What if we go?
no, I don't think it does. It's going into some reserve. It's just to be determined which one.
Which one?
I guess my worry is that somehow this is used to offset the operating budget and it doesn't go into the reserves. That's why I'm requesting the detail on where the money would go.
We can wait and vote on it. Like, it's not like the warrant hearing is tomorrow. So we
No,
can
no.
table it till we get that answer.
we can bring it up with them tomorrow evening.
Okay.
All right,
Very
why don't
good,
we just do
thanks.
that? All right, so, Article 20 is
I think we did that on the 22nd.
fabulous.
At least my minutes reflect that. That's the landfill.
Well, if these things were in the same order, I would be able to tell better on my
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
That's right.
Listen, lady. Okay, so we're gonna, looks like the next 3 solar ones are all in progress. So, do we have anything we wanna talk about with those, or do we just wanna table them till later?
On the solar, let's table the solar until next week.
Okay. All right, so then 24 is Hinckley South.
I would hold on Hinckley South. I just received some amendments to that today, and I haven't even had a chance to review them yet.
Okay. So no Hinckley South. How about Hinckley North?
Hinckley North, I don't believe there are any changes to.
What do you think, Newton? Do you want to talk about North, or do you want to do it another time?
Sure. So this is carry forward from a prior year that didn't obviously make it to annual town meeting, but this is to use, sorry, Amanda, we're having our one-on-one discussion now.
I know, I was like, oh, we can do it live.
That's right. So there are 2 Hinckley properties, north and south. South is faces Ice House Road. North fronts Harding Street. And it isn't the best piece of land to build on, but the town still wants to make a run at trying to develop a group home on that particular property. So this would transfer ownership to the Affordable Housing Trust that would try to dispose of it by sale or ground lease to a private or nonprofit developer, all for the purpose of developing housing consistent with our production plan. In the theory, there is what's in the production plan is a group home. And the Housing Trust has started to speak with several different developers of that sort of housing. No one has bitten yet on it, but it is still being held out for that purpose.
What's a group home?
For disabled people.
Mhm.
One particular group was called, a vendor that we talked to, or developer, it's called Neuro Restorative. They look to come in and either develop or refurbish ranch homes, maybe up to 4 bedrooms for brain disabled people with brain injuries. They have a very interesting operating model and plan, and those are ongoing conversations with them.
And Newton, if this didn't pass, I mean, there'd be some disposition or some plan at some point, right? And
Well,
is
it's town-owned land.
funds?
If it didn't come to the Affordable Housing Trust, if you say it doesn't pass, it remains in the town's portfolio or balance sheet, and we'd have to make some
Maintain it.
other arrangements for it, or another run at this.
So this is this similar to what the other one, which like on the solar panel property, that it just authorizes the selectmen or the town to do something, as opposed to, it's not a commitment, it's just
Yeah.
a step of authorization? Is that basically what it does?
Correct. It's authorizing the board to dispose of it through to the Affordable Housing Trust, with the ultimate purpose of leasing or selling it.
So it's with the board. Does the board then go to the selectmen, or how does that, what's the process there? Or is it just whatever comes up through the board is the disposition, or?
I'll have to defer to Nick or Christine, but I think the Board of Selectmen always sign RFPs or contracts and negotiate those. We would recommend, I think the Affordable Housing Trust would recommend a proposal to them, but they're the negotiators.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Thanks.
Christine, is there any other competing request for that space, or is this something that the Board of Selectmen are on board with?
They haven't spoken about it publicly, but I don't believe there's any opposition to it. So, if there is, they have not made me aware, but I don't think they have any opposition to it.
Does anybody have any questions or issues voting on this tonight? Or want more information?
Looks like there's a question in the chat.
Oh. A parcel number. Does anyone have the parcel number for Hinckley North?
Not have the.
It should be in this document right
Wait,
here.
is it in this document here?
At least the others have been.
No, it only references.
Is it this book and page thing? Do you want me to read that?
The book and page is there.
Yeah,
it's
Chris, I'll get you a parcel number. I'll shoot you an email with the text of this article, but it doesn't have a parcel number. That would put that in my description, and I have not done that yet. But
Would
I
it
will.
be the same as, just Christine, excuse me, would it be the same as Hinckley South in that they're
No,
essentially joined?
no, it's
Separate?
going to be a different parcel.
Okay.
I'll get that off to you, Chris.
all right. For book and page, Chris, it's book 672 at page 75, containing 4.8 acres. Does that work? Okay. All righty.
So Hinckley North is map 64 parcel 001. Does that help?
I think so, and I think she was good with the book and page too, so.
Maybe we're saying the same thing.
Two different ways in property language, I guess. Noon, she would like you to repeat the number that you said?
Map 64 parcel 001.
That's book and page. So I will get you.
Okay.
I just sent you a copy of the article, but I will get you the actual parcel number tomorrow, Chris.
Fair enough.
Nope. All right. Any other questions on this one?
Are we voting tonight?
I have a
People
motion
feel
to
comfortable
approve.
voting. I'm fine with voting.
I have a motion to approve the Hinckley North property article.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion to approve Article 25.
Okay, so Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes,
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes,
Amanda,
Yes,
and I vote yes. Ah, I didn't forget this time. Okay. All right, so 26 and 27 we did last week. Those were the energy articles. And I think these next ones were the ones that we did last week too, right? Or
Yeah,
they
so
have different
Article
numbers
28
now.
yeah, so Article 28, we approved 29, 30, 31, and 32 were approved last meeting.
Okay, and then 33 looks like it has to do with solar, so we're holding on the solar.
Well, Article
Or did we do that
33
one?
and then 34 is a zoning diagnostic. And I was thinking that because the planning board is asking for money for their $20,000 zoning diagnostic, that I'd like to invite them here to kind of make their pitch to the committee, you know, so that they can explain why they want that $20,000. It just seems fair since they're asking for money rather than me explaining it, even though I did it last time, but you guys had, you know, questions and wanted to table that. So, and then while they're here, they can also talk about the solar as well.
Okay.
So,
That's
I'm
fine.
sorry, 33 we're tabling to a future date?
Yeah, they're available to come next week if that works for the group, but I can see if
my
they're
only-
available.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. Next week is good. Well, next week we have capital. I guess we did already do municipal stabilization fund. Is water and sewer gonna come next week, Christine?
Yes,
I know
they're-
that you said,
I'll confirm that with them tomorrow during their board meeting, but they're getting ready for it.
well,
The
because I
15th.
know that, because Christine said, I think their meeting, water and sewer's meeting with the selectmen got pushed off. So do we have to push them off or can we still have them?
They are not meeting with the selectmen now until March 16th. So are you meeting on the 18th?
But right now, we did have 2 meetings next week set up. So if we keep those, if that still works for people, maybe we move water and sewer on the 18th and we
I would
have
move water
planning
and
come
sewer
in
to-
on Monday, if
Yeah,
that
I
works
would
for
move
them.
Water and sewer to the 16th, to the 18th.
Want to do that?
Yeah.
So Newton, do you want to see if water and sewer can come on the 18th instead?
I will.
Okay, and then assuming that works, Christine will do planning on the 15th.
Okay.
All right. So that brings us down to 35, which jumps all the way to page 23, since 33 is a very verbose article. I think we might have done 35. This was the historic district. Did we do that one last week?
I don't
No,
think
we
we
didn't get to that. Christine, do you think we should talk about this? Do you think that we should just wait a little bit in case?
I would wait. I talked to Mike Taylor and he would like to move forward with this. The new Peak House district is just going to be the Peak House and the Clark Tavern. However, he can't hold, by law, can't hold his hearing until mid-April after we've already had the warrant hearing and published this. So they would like to keep it in there for now. It could be withdrawn at town meeting, but at this point they're planning on keeping it in there, but I don't know what will happen at their public hearing.
So basically, so do you want me to just describe it a little bit? So basically
Sure.
what this is that there are 2 kind of commissions that deal with historic properties in Medfield. One is the Historic District Commission, which is what this, when, you know, sponsoring this article. And the other commission is the Medfield Historic Commission. And they're the commission that implements the demolition delay bylaws. And so basically, if you wanted to demolish like a building in Medfield, there are certain triggers that triggers the demolition delay. One being if like a building is over 50 years old, which is what this Clark Tavern is. And so it triggers the demolition delay. And so if there is, if someone goes to the building inspector to pull a demolition permit, it triggers the demolition delay. They have to go before the Medfield Historic Commission. They did that because the Clark Tavern, as you know, is, LCB was supposed to come in and do an assisted living. Now they're going to develop it. It was approved for 5 units of residential. It was just approved. And they went before the Medfield Historic Commission, and the Medfield Historic Commission, even though they invoked the demolition, they said that you can demolish it, so that you could go forward with demolishing it. So at the same time, the Medfield Historic District Commission wanted to create this, the Peak House and the Clark Tavern as a historic area. But then they have to file an application with the state. They have to wait 60 days before their first kind of meeting in order to move forward. That's what Christine was just saying about that April 1st date. And so there's kind of a conflict because during that time, the McCready's, who are the owners, could potentially raise that building, so it could be gone. So then it's almost like a moot point. So, but there are certain things that the McCready's have to do. I think they have to do an archaeological dig just to make sure there's no kind of historic artifacts and stuff like that. So there's kind of processes that the developer or the owner has to go through before they can demolish the building. So it's kind of a matter of timing. And then what the Medfield Historic District Commission just wants is that to create kind of this historic area and let the town decide what they want to do with the Clark Tavern, basically, and the Peak House. But I don't think anything's happening in the Peak House. It's just the Clark Tavern that's going to come down to become 5 units of residential. So the Clark Tavern would be 2 units, and then there'll be another 2 units kind of along the side, and then 1 unit for a total of 5 on that property.
So Christine, you may have said that, I'm sorry. The action that was taken prior by one of the boards to approve the McCready development plan and the Clark Tavern, how does that, I'm not sure, how does this affect that?
So they approved the development of those 5 units of residential. So basically they're allowing them to go in to build those 5 units. So then when you want to build it, then they go to the building inspector to say, all right, we need a permit to demolish the Clark Tavern. And at that point, because the building is 50 years or older, it triggers that demolition delay. So then they go to the Historic Commission, and then the Historic Commission can say, we can delay the demolition for up to 18 months. You can't touch this building for 18 months until we figure out, are there kind of historical art, historical structures that need to be preserved or whatever. But in this case, the Historic Commission did not invoke the demolition delay. They basically said, here's your demolition permit, go to town and start doing your work, which is in conflict with the other commission that wants to preserve that building.
What, the other commission is who?
So the other commission that is a sponsor of the article is the Medfield Historic District Commission. And the one that invokes the demolition delay bylaw is a Medfield Historic Commission. One has district in it, one doesn't.
Are they the same?
That's not confusing, Bob.
I know.
Are those the same? Are some of them the same people?
I don't know if some of them are the same people. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. Christine or Nick, do you guys know if? No, they're not.
They're separate membership.
So, okay.
So,
And Christine or Nick, do you guys have anything to
You're as
add?
confused as I am. Go ahead.
so the bottom line is McCready can knock the Clark Tavern down within the next 60 days and begin construction.
That's correct.
And if he
Subject-
hasn't,
well,
by
subject
the
to
time
doing some,
the
like,
town meeting
artifact-
starts and this passes, then maybe he can't.
No, the creation of this district won't impact that project. I think what Mike Taylor would like to do in moving forward is, what if something happened and that project fell through? They would like to create this district kind of as just a backup in case something happened.
Wow.
But as of now, that project is prepared to move forward.
Wow.
So Christine, so even like, so let's say it's not demolished, but then like it is like historic district, can they not demolish it, or is it just
No,
they
they've
can
already-
move forward?
They've already been given approval for it, so they
Okay.
can move forward. Yep.
So is
Okay.
this basically just trying to extra protect the Peak House, maybe?
I think they wanted to protect the Clark Tavern. They didn't want to see it torn down, is what Mike
Right,
Taylor
but
was
that,
saying.
but that is now being torn down.
But the Peak
Right.
House district is gonna only be the Peak House. It can't be the
Right,
Peak
and-
House and the Clark, because that's not gonna be there.
So when I asked Michael Taylor, I was like, well, then
not
do you
first.
want it just to be the Peak House? And at that time, because I talked to him maybe about 2 weeks ago, he's like, I don't know, we really wanted to include the Clark Tavern. So
Yeah.
that's why it's kind of like up in the air a little bit.
It's
Gotcha.
in limbo.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Yeah, so to answer, Chris McHugh has a question in the chat. Chris, I don't think we have any intention on voting on this tonight. I think we were just getting information on it, so it is gonna be tabled. So. All right, does anybody have any other questions on this incredibly confusing and potentially controversial article? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a legal part of this? I mean, does Mark Sorrell, does anybody, it just sounds like very confusing.
Mark
How
reviewed it.
how do I become unconfused by this?
We should have coffee.
Okay, yeah, well, that's always satisfying, but it doesn't necessarily,
So we have multiple historic districts throughout town.
yeah,
Like, for example, we have the Medfield State Hospital Historic District. There's the Main Street Historic District. So there's several districts within town that are existing, and I can get you a list of all of those.
well, no, yeah, but my confusion isn't with the concept of historical districts,
Right.
okay? My confusion is that the Historical Commission voted to approve the development of a site.
Mhm.
And
Or
it
for the
included
demolition of
Clark-
the building.
I'm sorry, and included the Clark Tavern. And now there's an article that says, if the approval of the development on the Clark building site is not completed, then any future development of the Clark building would be restricted because it's in a historical district.
Correct.
That's basically what it's saying?
Yes.
Wow.
So this is a what if.
Yeah, what if,
Yeah,
to go over something that's already been decided? Why would we?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there'll be more conversation, but
There will. Mike Taylor will come in and talk to you. He's just
Right.
asked that we hold on to it, even though
Right.
their hearing will occur much longer after we've done the warrant hearing.
okay, it'd be good for having to come in.
Okay. So
Steve,
the next. Yeah, go ahead.
Or Sharon, I just want to confirm 33, 34, and 35 are deferred.
They are, and
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
pretty sure 36 and 37 are gonna be deferred too. But those are the two citizens petitions.
Right, so how do we, because how do we, I think in the future, at a future meeting, we need to have the people who are proposing this.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe we need to have a night devoted to, so I'm gonna segue into my calendar for a hot second. So we know that we're not having the hearing on the 23rd, right,
Right.
Chrissy?
Right. I think we should do
So-
it Thursday, April 1st.
I know, I love that idea.
How
gonna be fun.
appropriate. You're setting
I
us
know.
up, Christine, you're setting us
I
up.
think that was like the most fabulous suggestion on the planet, and I
Right.
already have a plan for it.
I think this was part of your plan, Sharon, to put it on April 1st, I know that.
I might have a doppelganger for that day. So, all right, so if next Monday, if we're doing capital and whatnot, capital and planning board stuff on Monday, and if we're meeting on Thursday and doing water and sewer, originally, when the hearing was on the 23rd, we were gonna be doing operating budget stuff on the 18th also. But since we have till the 1st, and I don't think we're gonna be ready to do operating budget yet, we could either add some of this stuff to the 18th, or we could do some of the stuff on the 22nd that we need to have other people in. Those would be my suggestions.
And Christine, I think this would be a meeting that I think I'd like to have Mark Sorrell attend.
Absolutely. We can invite him.
You know, so I mean, whatever, so, you know, I don't know what his schedule is, Sharon, but, you know, being that these are bylaws and,
No, I agree. Well, why don't we see what people's availability is, and let's look at the 18th and the 22nd for those, if that works for people.
and there was a question at the end of this when the selectmen went through it. That Article 36 and or 37, they're non-binding, did I hear, or is that not correct? That's why I wanted Mark to be.
37 is binding, 36 is a non-binding.
Because it's just a recommendation, is that why it's
Right.
non-binding?
Mhm.
Okay. So we're gonna put a to be continued on 36 and 37 until either the 18th or the 22nd, when all parties involved can attend. Okay, looks like 38 is also going to wait since it has a giant in progress next to it.
Correct.
Okay. Looks like 39 is also in progress with an extra S. In progress?
I'm in progress. Yes, we're still waiting for, I don't think, when I did this, I don't think I had a report from the Affordable Housing Trust yet. I believe you just talked about this last week, so. I'll get my report tomorrow night.
Okay. Can we talk about the scenic road?
Yes. Although this, you may want to wait and hold off when you have the planning board in and they can discuss this as well.
That's fine. Does people want to hear about, from the planning board, about our scenic road?
I think you do.
Okay, all right, so we will wait and do that on the 15th. Oh, last page. Collective bargaining agreements, can we do that one yet?
Not yet.
All right.
I'd like to do them
So
all
we
at
can't do
once.
any of the rest of them.
No.
All right, so then all of the rest of them are all TBDs. Well, that was fun and exciting. We
That's
actually
good.
got more
That's-
done than I thought
that's-
that we would. So
Yeah,
good.
that's a lot of good movement on the warrant articles for the warrant report, so that's good.
Okay. That's good. So do you guys want to give your thing on the budget?
Yes, Nick, if you can put up the summary sheet, I think that's the easiest as we go through.
While Nick is doing that, is just for the minutes and the record,
Yeah.
is the warrant hearing moved to April 1st? Okay,
Yeah.
fun and games.
No fool. No fool, it's on April 1st.
And part of that, for anybody who did not watch the selectmen's meeting, the reason why we're moving that is because there was a discussion of moving the town meeting to the 17th and the 18th of May.
And that's TBD, right? They haven't voted that?
No, they'll vote that tomorrow night, but I have every indication that they will move forward with that tomorrow evening.
They just have to vote tomorrow that it'll be good weather, and then they can do that. So
I know. So this pretty much guarantees that on May 3rd, it'll be 75 and sunny, and on May 17th, we will have a snowstorm. So,
Or torrential downpours.
yeah, I mean, it's just we're attempting.
And it's gonna be outdoors at night.
We're gonna start it at 5 o'clock. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Bring your bug spray, Ed.
Yeah, well, for all these articles, we'll be there till midnight.
Okay, let's see. All right, so I just want to go over where we are in our budget spreadsheet. I know a lot of you have had a chance to see this or watch the selectmen's meeting the other night. When we initially presented this budget scenario, we had a deficit of a little over $2 million. So we have been working as you know, since January to refine our projections. And the selectmen have asked us, starting after last year's town meeting, to keep two key goals in mind as we develop this budget. And one was to figure out a way to fund the capital stabilization fund and meet our financial policy. So a couple of things we've changed since you saw this, and we'll start with the revenue side. We have upped our new growth projection. We originally projected 425. In working with Yvonne, your principal assessor, we have moved this to 475. And that's based on the increase in continual construction activity we've seen in town. We also anticipate an economic activity increase, and we have seen that happening as we start to get people vaccinated and we start to reopen our economy and move forward. We have increased our local receipts by $98,000. And you will also see that we now are using an other use of free cash. This $992,000, this amount of money was worked through with the Board of Selectmen, and this will fund the creation of the Capital Stabilization Fund, as well as meet the financial policy obligations that we did not meet last year, including OPEB and our contribution to stabilization. Okay, moving on to expenses.
Hey, Christine, I'm sorry.
Yep. No, go ahead.
When you, in the selectmen's meeting, there was a discussion around, so what you're doing with free cash at the moment is meeting the percentage
Correct.
requirements, correct? But when there was and I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but the conversation that I heard with the selectmen was that there may be an opportunity to further increase the stabilization to put back in what wasn't funded last year. Can you,
Correct.
that's something to talk about now or later? I just want to.
No, we can talk about it now. So one of the things you heard Gus say last week is that because we didn't meet our financial policy last year, he would like to see us meet that this year and replenish what we didn't do last year. So for example, he would like to see a minimum of $400,000 put into stabilization, where this currently only shows 200,000. And they will continue that conversation tomorrow, but they do have the opportunity to do that and still meet their policy.
Right. So just so I understand, again, I know we'll talk about it later, but the objective is to meet the criteria, the percentage in the policy.
Correct.
Right. By adding an additional 200,000,
Mhm.
it would put us over the number, which is always a good thing, right?
Right, and we can still meet our free cash policy and increase what the policy requires putting into stabilization. Yes.
Right, but it's 200,000 that could otherwise, so you don't want, the objective would be to use it to further the free cash of stabilization and not to apply it against the $400,000.
Correct.
I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but the 400,000 you're going to get to by the end of the presentation, right?
I feel like I'm watching Netflix with Bob and he already saw the next episode.
That's right.
Yes,
But
we'll
I
get to
mean,
that
it's-
as we go forward.
That was helpful, Bob.
You're on the right page.
Well, because that's a decision on that we in the Warrant Committee and the selectmen will, and probably the school committee by the time this thing all comes out together, that's going to be one of the discussion points, right?
Yes, and the selectmen have talked about it for several years. I know Jeremy and I have talked about it at length, is that free cash should not be used to offset your operating budget. And the town made a commitment when they passed their financial policy in 2018, the Board of Selectmen made a commitment to stop doing that and use free cash for the purposes that the Department of Revenue has outlined as appropriate uses for that. One of the things we've got ourselves in trouble with is using a higher than normal amount of free cash every year to offset the operating budget to avoid an override. But the problem is we weren't putting any money into our reserve funds. And then you get into trouble when you have, a pandemic and have a serious downturn in your economic stability and don't have that money in your rainy day fund to rely on. one of the things you recall we talked about last year was Moody's concern that we had been using too much free cash to offset the operating budget. Not building up those reserves could have an impact on our bond rating, making any future borrowings more expensive for us. So that was the impetus for the 2018 financial policy, was to start putting us on track to make sure we were putting money away in these reserve funds.
Yeah, I know, and you're preaching to the choir on fiscal responsibility and conservatism, trust me, but, and, still looking at the deficit in this unusual year, I'm just thinking that I understand. Your explanation was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if we can flip to expenses. Okay, so one of the biggest drivers, as you know, in our expenses is our health insurance budget. We were very fortunate last year to strike a deal with the unions on a plan design change that, as you know, saved us in the 11th hour last year and allowed us to reduce the cuts we had to our requested budgets. This year, I'm pleased to tell everybody that we have a decrease of 0.6% in our health insurance premiums, which has allowed us to lower this budget line item. I can't stress enough, though, we are going to be receiving a holiday premium for 1 month, which results in a savings of approximately $295,000 to the town. It will also give our employees a 1-month premium holiday. That is a one-time freebie, gimme, that the health insurance company is giving us. I would anticipate that we will see, that we're starting our next year's health insurance budget with that $295,000 back in there. That's not something I don't think we will see again for next year. So keep in mind, that's a huge saving for us this year. It's definitely helping reduce the deficit, but that's not something we can count on going forward. So just to keep your eye on that. I'm not going to go through each individual budget. I think we've done that. I went through it with the selectmen because they had not seen anything. So if anybody has any questions about these highlighted ones, we've done a lot of this through your warrant committee meetings, but if you'd like, I can go back through them. There are a few outstanding items that we're working on with the Board of Selectmen. We're finalizing our police union contracts and COVID stipends. We are still negotiating a town administrator contract and a police chief contract extension. So those are still being worked on, but I anticipate resolution to those within the next week or so.
So Christine, the dollar impact of settlement on the fire, that's the 59,000?
Yes. His budget went up, I think it was just around 4%. I don't have off the top.
I mean, it was pretty flat up until then, and then.
Yes, that reflects the changes in the new contract.
And but the police is 92 does not reflect anything on a collective bargain.
I cannot confirm or deny that at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So if anybody has any other questions about individual budgets, otherwise, as Bob was giving you the heads up, this budget meets the concerns of the Board of Selectmen. It meets our 7.5% goal of expenditures for our reserves. It meets our 2.5% free cash balance. And it also creates the new capital stabilization fund. Those were very key to the selectmen to make sure we moved forward with that this year. Having said all of that, that does leave us with a deficit of $421,284 that we need to find before we can move forward in balancing the budget.
Christine, I assume that Jeff and Michael know of this new number?
It was just presented to the selectmen last week. I have
Right.
not sat down with Jeff or Michael to talk about it since I presented it on Tuesday.
Okay.
So given where you are, and I know it's fine tuning, but the health insurance being a big item that's gone now. The reserves, or the, not reserve, but the revenues tweaks that you've done. Is there, what's left other than operating budgets?
That's it. I don't think we have any more movement on anything else. That's why we've waited several weeks to present this to you, making sure we had our final numbers on the health insurance and where we felt comfortable with our local receipts. So I think at this point, we are looking for direction on cuts for the 421,000.
How much, like, I guess, what do you want us to do next? Like, are you gonna go back to the town budgets? I mean, I sent a heads up to the schools that we needed them to start thinking through their list. All I got from that was, thanks for the heads up, but Ed and I haven't met with them or anything yet, so I'm just, do we want to try to get this 421 gone by April 1st? Like, what's our goal?
Well, I think if you're going to, right after the April 1st date is when we need to publish the warrant. We don't usually publish the warrant for everybody unless we have a balanced budget. So I think the goal is to get that done before we do that. When
So
we brought it with the selectmen on Tuesday, they wanted the warrant committee to see it as well, but there's been no direction on cuts.
So Christine, when we look at that, last year we had a fairly lengthy discussion on the percentage investing schools and town.
Mhm.
That's a proportionate number that, because we're gonna have to start from a beginning point of what portion goes where, and then we go back to each one of the departments that constitute whatever that is. So last year's we had, wasn't it like 60-40, or I'm trying to remember. I don't
I
have
can
to.
send you the breakdown from last year. Last year, we had a different percentage before we had a reduction in local aid and a percentage afterwards. I will tell you that Selectman Murby is making a presentation tomorrow night at the Selectmen's meeting regarding his pro forma of where he thinks revenue and expenditures should be divided between schools and towns. So that'll happen tomorrow evening.
Oh, that'll be a reason.
Does that mean I gotta listen again and get a
There you
shout out
go.
again?
Gotta get a shout out here, Sharon. But actually, I can tell you the YouTube for a retiree was fine. It's in the afternoon, and I could put it on pause and get a cup of tea and come back, you know. But so the answer to, I guess, my question is, after tomorrow night's presentation, we'll get a perspective on what that allocation.
Directive is.
I'm anticipating the Selectmen will give their recommendation on that tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
But obviously it's the warrant committee's budget, so I would not be surprised to see the Board of Selectmen looking to the warrant committee for a recommendation as well.
I know, then
And
Sharon,
then we play chicken
then
for
Sharon
2
have to go in that little chair that Mike was in last year. And we gotta avoid that if we can. Bring a
Okay.
pillow. We can.
Ay.
Does the town budget still include the 75,000 for the full-time healthcare nurse?
As of right
Yeah.
now, this reflects the 75,000 for that.
The full-time position right now.
Yeah.
And the planning board diagnostic and the Affordable Housing Trust stipend of
This is,
sorts.
yeah, exactly. I think that probably what I would suggest is that those of us that can listen tomorrow night can listen tomorrow night. Otherwise, I'll send out the recording when I see that it's out. But this is probably a back of the envelope, look at all the things in the operating that we haven't voted on yet, and see what we can come up with a recommendation of where people might need to push back. But I guess Christine, I want to be sensitive to the fact as to whether or not you want us to go back to departments and say, we think you should cut another XYZ, or if you want to do that, if you wanted
No,
to just come up with.
I think I would handle that at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will tell you that most of our departments, as you know, came in level funded.
Mhm. Right.
When they were given their budget direction back in October, they came in at level funded. And again, the town took, 3.98% cut last year in our budgets. So this
Right.
fiscal year 22 number may be a 3.6% increase that we've requested, but that amount of that budget is still less than the budget we had in fiscal year 20, 2 years ago.
No, I understand.
I know.
And I'm hopeful that the schools are going to come back with at least a cut of something, because every year in the past, there's always been an initial budget and then a pared down budget. There's always been at least one first pass of being able to give something. So I know that they, in that first pass budget, didn't have some of the things that they talked about when we were here about, like, maybe doing bus fees and technology fees and things like that that could help them do that. So I think that maybe Ed and I can reach out again to try to have that discussion, because I think they all seemed willing to have those kinds of creative discussions that fees might be able to help with potential cuts that they could offer. So I think that I would like to, I think what I would like to try to do, and I guess this goes with the scheduling thing. So if we're going to meet twice next week, if we're doing capital and then we're doing some more articles on the 18th, I'm already lost what I said we were going to do on the 22nd. We were going to do some of the citizens petitions or the articles on the 22nd. So the 29th is not good for me because of the election. Are the selectmen meeting on the 30th, or do we want to try to do a meeting on, say, like the 25th or something?
The selectmen are meeting
Because
on
we have to skip the 29th.
Selectmen are meeting on the 30th, but we can split up, or, I mean, you don't need us to meet, that's fine.
Well, I feel like we need you and Nick on the night we're going to talk about operating stuff.
Okay.
I'm more thinking about, like, when are we going to, just because the first is going to come up on, the first. So if we can't meet on the 29th and you guys can't come on the 30th, that either, I don't want to delay the entire discussion to the 31st, just because that doesn't give us time to work on it if we don't. I feel like we would have to have something in hand by the 31st.
But can I just make a question or comment? I guess it'd be a comment.
Yeah.
I heard what Christine said about how all the budgets were, where we were and where we were relative to 2020. And I heard your comment saying you're hopeful that the schools will come back with some changes.
Yeah.
To both, proportionately, we got to make it. It's got to happen.
Right. It does have
The
to happen.
school doesn't have an option, and we have to find it. We have to find something somewhere in the town operation, right? I mean, we can't have a deficit, and we have to get a number by April 1st so we can put out the articles. So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of being maybe I'm being difficult, but I guess it's a difficult situation. What are the other options? The school's got to come back with a lower number, and we've got to get some lower numbers out of the operations of the other departments, right?
To answer your overall question, if you did not cut the 421,000, you'd be looking at an override. You'd be looking at
Right, exactly. And we're not going to do an override, so.
Right.
So is it possible to, because I know even if the schools come up with, 250,000 tomorrow, they're still going to have to go to the school committee to get approval to, I guess, offer that up. So should we be saying to the schools, you have, come to us next week with your proposal? Well, they can't come next week because they have to, when's the next school committee meeting?
I need to, hold on, let me try to Google it. I'm not sure. Unless there is a,
I'm just trying to say if the next school committee meeting is, let's say.
Anime and Megan are listening. If either of you are listening and know when your next meeting is, can you put it in the chat?
Thursday.
Thursday this week? But, all right, when is
Well,
your one
the
after this
The-
week?
the- Yeah, the selectmen are gonna come out tomorrow and say what the proportion is. That's gonna give them a perspective. Right?
Well, they may have to, I mean, well, here's the thing. So today's the 8th. So if we tell the schools that we need a number back by either our meeting on the 15th or the 18th, like they may have to just schedule an emergency meeting for themselves to talk about.
Yeah, something like that. So we have a firm number by the 15th or the 18th, at least their first pass at how much they think they can get between
Yeah.
fees and whatever.
And I guess we're gonna do the same with our operating budgets, right?
Which I think that, Christine, you're gonna handle that, right? Please, yeah. So I guess that's what I would say. So I would say that we need to, so Ed, if you wanna reach out to the schools, we can see, if we can meet with them at some point this week, if need be, or if they think that they can come on the 15th or the 18th with something to us. And then that way, the week of the 22nd, we can have even a larger discussion about it, because I feel like we honestly, instead of having this done on the 1st, we almost need to have it done on March 25th. Like,
Well, we gotta do the same thing we did last year, right? We have to have the warrant committee, the school committee, and the selectmen all on the same page. Eventually, we gotta get there. Right?
well, we have to get there, and it's.
Yeah, I mean, but we gotta get there together, is what I'm saying. Last year it was a model, and we're gonna have to do it the same way. I mean, I don't think we can go in with,
I'm just accelerating our deadline by a week. Like, I don't want to say April 1st, because it really has to be like the week before that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just, why don't people just, are people, if we have to have it, are you free on the 25th to have 2 meetings that week, the 22nd and the 25th, if we have to?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, so just having your calendars that clearly we're meeting today, and then it would be the 15th, 18th, 22nd, 25th would be our next 4. And then if we have to meet before April 1st, we'll figure that out the week of the 22nd.
One more time, March 15, 18, 22, 25.
That's right.
Okay.
And then the warrant hearing on the 1st.
Yep.
And then hopefully we don't have to meet on the 29th, 30th, or 31st, but if we do, it's gonna either be on the 30th or the 31st.
That's my
Or it
birthday.
would have to be a later start because I have to tabulate. Unless Christine wants to find a new tabulator, but they like my spreadsheets and they're purple, so
You'd have to give back the vest. You have to go.
I know. So, it may not take that long, but we're gonna try not to meet. We'll either do the 30th or 31st if we have to, but hopefully we won't if we do those 4. Okay, so I guess what I would say is if you have thoughts or ideas about the departments that you worked with, I would suggest you mention them to Christine, not to the department heads. How's that instead? Does that work for you, Christine? Like people could just shoot you ideas if they have them rather than people getting bombarded, and then you can filter?
Mhm.
Okay.
Christine,
All right.
the articles, the monitorization of some of these articles, again, talking about the selectmen's meeting the other day, it was the article on funding the hospital. What-
That's included in this 400
Yeah.
number we're off. It
It's
was on that last page.
Right, and how much is that?
100,000.
It's 100,000 now. And and the conversation on yesterday was perhaps there was be some opportunity to shift that over to inside the town and doing some of that maintenance inside the town with a smaller increment to a town budget. Is that still?
You took notes at this meeting.
I'm just listening, you know, I mean,
Yes, there was a discussion, I believe it was Selectman Marcucci who proposed that maybe it made more sense at this point that the DPW take over maintenance of the property. And that be a smaller number than the 100,000 we know we have for the landscape contract.
And is that something that you manage with Mo, or?
Yes, I'm talking to Mo, and I'll follow up with the selectmen whether or not that's possible.
I mean, because as you say, we're looking for every opportunity we can to maybe offset, costs and efficiencies. It's not just, that's one that would be
Right.
good because it wouldn't,
Just remember, though, we cut an employee from the highway department last year as part of our cuts. So, this is the argument that we continue to cut our budgets and increase, the amount of work that's required from those people. So,
Isn't Park and Rec getting a new mower in the capital thing? They're supposed to mow really fast?
Not this year.
we took that off.
It's
Don't say that.
fiscal 20.
Not
Maybe
the
we
mower
could-
was gonna say.
How much would it cost to buy a herd of sheep?
Wait, can we get the Dover goats?
We could,
The goats that come and they just chew it out?
Right.
That's going to come down into the transfer station discussion, but the goats, but it's we get some sheep who could eat this, and we don't have to. Well, Jeremy, this is up your area, so I want to step back. I don't want to get in your area. I'm sure that's.
I think we're getting really close to. I think we all need to be done for the night. If we're suggesting sheep and goats instead of $100,000 for the hospital park.
Outside the box. That's
That's right. I like it.
when you're retired, you got nothing else to do but think of stupid stuff. So that's what happens. That's my wife. It can get worse.
MG. Okay. All right. So, all right. Do we have? Oh well. Other than Newton's minutes to approve, do we have anything else we want to try to do tonight, or we just want to gear up for a really busy next 3 weeks?
Really busy next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to do your minutes real quick, Newton?
Well, that's up to the group. I circulated them very late and they were lengthy. So if they want to take it for reprieve, that's good. If they don't, if everyone's had a chance to peruse them in depth, sure, let's go
They
for
were
it.
spot on. I thought they were spot on.
That's because I quoted you several times.
Yeah, only several. At least you didn't. They were spot on because you didn't quote me all the time, which I appreciate.
Right.
I have to filter it a little bit. But
I think you like the minutes
I
to
would
just say,
support- I
please
would
see the
support
recording saved here.
I would approve. I would motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second,
Okay, Bob
really well done.
and
Yes,
Newton,
yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. We lost Amanda at some
Yes.
point in the fun.
We did.
Yes, hold on. She texted me to tell Newton, hold on.
8:20.
She fell out.
8:19, she had dropped.
I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, I'm gonna fess up. The last week we forgot to adjourn, so we've been in session for a long
Please adjourn
time.
this week.
Right, we're gonna adjourn this week because we were all so done at 9:30 that we all just hung up and nobody adjourned. So.
Motion.
So I make a motion, we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Okay. All right. So Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So just check in on your schedules and let me know if you're having problems, like Christina, if you're having problems.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Great.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Take care.
Wow.